One. Welcome, everybody. We're back at it. The Shop Talk 20 podcast. I am your host, Joshua Edwards. And today I have a fantastic, just very poised human being here today on the show. Her name is Rebecca. And I met Rebecca through just Instagram, really. And,
Yeah.
we were commenting back and forth on some stuff. And I said, hey, why don't you come out to Network BOQ? And she came out on the first, the week after that we had an event. And she's been back since. So I'm assuming that means she enjoyed herself. And, but what I really want to do today is just share some value with those of you that are going to be listening to this episode. We're going to talk, get to know a little bit more about Rebecca and her journey, what she's up to, and get some, life perspective, but also business perspective from her and in the space that she works in. So Rebecca, with that, maybe take the next, 1, 2 minutes and just kind of give the people the 411, who you are, what do you do, where are you from?
Yeah, for sure. Well, thanks so much for having me on, Josh. I really appreciate it. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. I feel like we've known each other longer than we actually have. But
Does
yeah, my name's Rebecca Hawthorn. I'm the owner of Four Corners Collective. So we're a fairly new marketing agency. Been in business for about a year and a half. And we basically specialize in helping our clients, market themselves on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, all of those key platforms, and really just working with small, medium-sized businesses to kind of help them get their brand out there and meet their goals, whatever that might be.
That's fantastic. And talk to me a little bit about, like take me back to childhood. Like how did you how did you grow up and kind of what inspired you to kind of get into entrepreneurial land? Because it's not a path everybody chooses. So I'm always curious as to, how was your upbringing and what kind of led you in the direction to starting Four Corners Collective?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I grew up I went down a very traditional path that, most people go down. Yeah, I grew up in a small town, Port Hope, Coburg area. And, I was a good kid. Like I did well in high school. My parents always really pushed the value of education on me, and for good reason. So, I did my best. I was a good kid, got great marks in high school, and then went on to university, took a degree in criminology, actually, and, kind of went down that path of just getting educated and thinking that that was going to be the way that I was going to live my life. It's kind of interesting because I always had this little voice in the back of my mind that said, I want to be my own boss. And I always felt that, but I just wasn't sure how to do it or when that opportunity was going to come up because, I was in university and I thought, okay, I'm going to leave university and I'm going to get a really good job and that's going to be my life. And I graduated university and it really just didn't happen like that. I really didn't get that good of a job. It was much harder than I thought it was going to be. And I soon realized that I needed to have some sort of side hustle to keep myself afloat and make, extra money. So before I got into social media management, I pretty much always had a side hustle. I was always doing something to try to make extra money for myself. And I just hadn't found that passion point yet. And then, here we are now, and I finally found what I'm passionate about, and now it's what we do full time.
Wow, it's super neat to hear, about the backstory and like, because like myself, like I went to, not everybody knows this, like I went to Loyalist College for architectural technology before I stepped into the business sales and marketing program, and had a very rude awakening there, which is it's funny because like I really struggled with like the math and building code side of things. And
Right.
I think my profs kind of knew that that was going to be a struggle for me, which is the irony is like years later, I served some time on the board of directors there at the Quinny Home Builders Association, and I actually served with one of my old professors
Wow.
as a business owner at OSM. So it was nice for him to kind of comment and say like, hey man, like I can definitely tell you're now doing what you were meant to be doing, and to
Yeah.
hear that from somebody in the former life of what I wanted to do. So I totally resonate with that.
Mhm.
Talk to me, Rebecca, about first. I want to talk marketing with you for a second, and
Mhm.
like just what are you noticing? But I really want to kind of talk about something specific I saw you put out to the universe the other day, something
Mhm.
that really, really resonated with me, something I've been bullish about for quite a while, talking about, are we overvaluing followers? Is followers the holy grail for entrepreneurs, solarpreneurs, people that are trying to kind of grow their awareness organically on social? But talk a little bit about your
Mhm.
perspective on this, because I think it's going to be valuable for the people listening today.
Mhm. Yeah, I think it really depends, the realm that you work in, for sure. But I think as a whole, yeah, potentially we are overvaluing, the amount of followers that you have. I've worked a little bit in the influencer realm myself, and sometimes in that world, maybe it's a little bit more important. But, a lot of the small businesses that I work with even have the idea that if they don't have, 25,000 followers, we're not doing something right, or they're not doing something right. And it's a conversation we have to have, and just letting them know that, first of all, growing your following in the right way is a slow go. And it takes time, especially when you're doing it just through organic means. It is a slow go, and it's a slow go because you should be really focused on the right market, the market that matters to you. And that means sometimes you're not going to have an absolutely massive following. But I've seen really good results from a small following and really bad results from a really large following. And sometimes those with a smaller following have a better engagement rate and sell more products and services. So it's really interesting to look at that dynamic and just have that conversation with people, that if you are talking to the right people and you've got the right demographic that's following you, we don't need to be so obsessed with that number.
One of my community members here on OSM's page sent me an article yesterday, and it was just because they know how much I'm on this topic and how like passionate I get about it, and they sent me this article, and it talked about this. It was a young lady who had like a following of like 1.2 million or something like that, and all of these companies wanted to work with her, and like one company particularly ended up doing a deal with her. Like they wanted to like sell, I think it was like 36 t-shirts in like a certain like period of time, and they're like 1.2 million following, like 36 t-shirts shouldn't be a big deal.
Yeah.
And she couldn't sell 36 t-shirts
Yeah.
even with the 1.2 million dollar like million like person following. So
Yeah.
it just went to show like how, like, does the following really matter? And then like I put out some content around this, and I was like, and even in the influencer world, like I think engagement, to your point, I think engagement is the thing that people that want to work with influencers should look for over how many people they're following. Like
Yeah.
go into the comments and see like how many people actually give a crap about what that person's putting out there.
Yeah.
That kind of gives you a sense of like if what's being put out there is authentic to the person that's putting out, or are they just pandering to the audience that they're
Yeah.
trying to get more followers from. Your
Yeah.
thoughts?
Yeah, no, I couldn't agree more. Like, and I've been so blessed to work in a realm where engagement has been valued more than following. I've worked in some cases where we're trying to source influencers to send on, influencer trips and stuff like that. And, we set the bar a little bit lower than maybe people would expect us to in terms of like what we're looking for a following. Um, and and we're willing to kind of change that as well. Like if we see someone that only has a 10,000 person following, but their engagement rates are through the roof, then that's more attractive than somebody who has a 500,000 following but don't get any engagement on their content, right? And like what I see more than ever, and I think what's becoming more important through COVID and just in this realm these days, is just being authentic and connecting with your audience. Like to me, there's nothing worse than scrolling on my feed and just feeling like I'm being sold, or just not feeling like I'm connecting with the pages that I'm following. And so that's something I really, really am passionate about. And like I think you should just put out the type of content that you're passionate about, that feels authentic to you, and the right people will resonate with that content and will follow you, right?
100%. It's funny as you're saying that, two things like pop into my mind. One is y'all better stop. like
Yeah.
this it's, and for the people that are listening that might not get it, like it's you'll see these accounts pop up and they're kind of like media pages, and then they're just constantly like, I probably like 10,000 times a day commenting on your stuff saying like promote it on.
Yeah.
And they did it to Rebecca the one day, and I commented on her post under their comment. I said, y'all better stop.
Yeah. And honestly, like that made me laugh. And sometimes, because usually I just ignore it because I'm like, I just can't. And like, I don't know. Sometimes I'll delete the comment or I'll hide it. But then I'm like, you know what? I think it's also good for some people to see that like literally everyone gets those comments, and it's so insincere, and it's so like it's it's just like anything in life. You can spot someone or something that doesn't feel right, and that's exactly what that is, right? And it's a very, I find it frustrating when we talk about social media and we just miss the core component of what social media is supposed to be about. And that is literally just being social.
Mm.
Um, and sometimes it's frustrating to see little bits of the industry moving away from that.
Totally agree. And I'm going to throw this out on Front Street for people that are listening that are maybe thinking about influencer marketing. Like, I'm not opposed to working with somebody that's got like 500 followers. I'm really not. If all of those followers love you, like think about this. Like if somebody shows up to your doorstep, or you show up to a party. Let's say you show up to a party and you meet somebody, and that person says like, I know everybody here. There's 60 people at the party. I can get you connected with Sally, Jay, Don, Rick. Yeah, I can get you connected. You're gonna want to hang out with that person.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, why are we demonizing people with like 500 followers and saying like, oh, that's not a partnership worth looking into?
Yeah.
They might have the most loyal following.
Yeah, and I mean, I really believe in giving people opportunity as well. Like that's how people make it. Like maybe that person only has 500 followers right now, but like if you really believe in that person and you get the sense from them that like they could do great things because you really resonate with what they talk about, or and you can feel the authenticity that they give you, and their audience is really engaged, there's nothing wrong with working with that person and giving them a chance, right? I think that's how success happens, is just that's what happened to me. Like just one person believed in me when I got my first contract. Just one person said, no, I think you can do this, I think you're going to be good at it. And like it just took that one person to believe in me, and now here we are.
I love how you brought that up, because there are, some of my listeners, and I've chatted with a few people, and they don't have their own business right now. They're not in that world, but they're thinking about it. They're pondering the conversation, but
Mhm.
they have questions. And one of the questions that does come up is like, how do you get your first client? So can you take a moment just to share, like, how did you get your first client? And what was the way that you guys came in contact, and then how did that kind of relationship nurture into something where you ended up doing work for them?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I was really lucky, but I think when I look back at it, ultimately I was filling a need. And I think that that is a key component. So I lived out west for about 4 years, 4 or 5 years, and I actually managed a spa while I was out there. And, my life circumstances changed and I liked my job, but it was madness. I was running a small business and I was doing everything. So I was HR, I was, revenue management, I was marketing, I was everything in one. And I was burning out very fast. And I was going through some other life changes that were difficult at the time. So I ended up leaving that job and I ended up moving back here to Ontario. But before I left, I just asked my boss, I said, you know coming from my perspective, the fact that whoever is taking over my role is going to be so overwhelmed already, would you consider having me stay on a contract basis so I could take over marketing?
Mm,
um, because I know the business inside and out. I know our clients and I've been doing it already. So, we drew up a contract and it was like, yeah, it wasn't very much. It was like $500 a month, but I was stoked about it. Like I was so excited.
hold on a second. Hold on a second.
Mhm.
I want to go back because, like, what you did, not everybody would think to go and do that. Like they're leaving a position. Most people are just like, all right, I guess I gotta, try my foot at something else. Like, what gave you the intuition to say, no, let me go back to this
Mhm.
person and look and see where I can still help?
Yeah.
What gave you that intuition to go and do that?
Ultimately, it's so funny. I look back and it just was like this gut feeling that I just genuinely felt like I could help. And like I cared deeply about the organization, the people that I worked with, and like the success of the business because I had invested 4 years of my life into growing the business and like increasing revenue and doing all of these things. And I had a great relationship with my boss. And he was really sad that I was leaving. And I was just like, how cool would it be if I could stay on and still be involved in this place that I love, and still help them kind of get ahead. And I honestly almost didn't ask. Like it scares me to think that I actually almost didn't put myself out there, because he could have said no. And I was really afraid of that. And I was like, am I crazy for putting this out there and saying I want to do your social media pages? But I did it. And he was like, yeah, that's a no brainer for sure.
Wow, wow, I love that. I think that's going to be helpful for people because it's like, you don't know
Yeah.
until you ask, and those who don't ask, they don't receive. So I love that you were able to break through kind of like that limiting belief, like, oh, he's not going to need my services, oh, that's not going to work, and you asked anyway.
Yeah, it was a really beautiful thing actually because as soon as I did that, I managed that page for, probably a month, and then a month went by and someone else that I knew from that position that I used to be in, he actually used to help us with our Facebook ad campaigns, and he owns a digital marketing agency in Vancouver. He actually reached out to me and said, would you want to do some similar work for me? um and this was huge. Like this was like the break that I was hoping for. And I mean, at the time I was living with my parents. I was in my overdraft. I couldn't make my car payments. Like that $500 was the only income I had coming in, because I knew if I went out and got a 9 to 5, I would get sucked into that and I wouldn't pursue the opportunity to do this full time.
Mm,
So I was really lucky to have him come in and say, I can see you're doing a great job and I want to take you on. And then it's kind of just evolved ever since.
wow, wow, that's incredible. you,
Mhm.
you know like the last network BOQ chat that we were on, you kind of put out something out there which received incredible feedback from my vantage point, some people that have actually kind of been there, been in that position and had to kind of work through that. Can we chat a little bit about that? I think I want to kind of create a safe space here
Mhm.
where entrepreneurs, specifically, female entrepreneurs, can, can get some value from what you're journeying through right now. But can you take a moment just to kind of talk about kind of your
Mhm.
current journey and some of the opportunities and challenges you're facing right now?
Yeah, absolutely. And I found that conversation like honestly so powerful. So just to update the audience, I'm pregnant and super
Congratulations.
thank you. Super exciting time in our lives. But yeah, the it's very exciting, but it's terrifying from my perspective as well because I've been, toying with this idea of like, how much time do I take off? How am I going to balance my workload? And how do I make sure my clients are taken care of? And how do I still try to maintain, if not grow, the business that I've worked so hard on for the past couple of years while being a mother and a partner and a friend and all of these things, right? So that conversation that we had was, I actually got a little bit emotional after because I think it was such a supportive group of people that I was talking to. And I'd never had the chance to really talk about how afraid I am of that like that dynamic that I'm in right now. And them telling me just to give myself permission to, you know, step back, even if it's for a month or two, and just enjoy, my time and it's okay to do that was really powerful.
100%. And I mean, and from people that have they have I think Melanie on the call, like she's got like full grown children now, and then Michelle's got like a 14-year-old. So it was really, really powerful, like hearing their perspective and kind of like how they kind of came through that as well. That was really, really neat.
Yeah, and it's something I'm only about 17 weeks pregnant, but I'm already obsessed with the conversation, and I'm so excited to create some content around this because I know there are some people in my community on Instagram and stuff that are moms that are entrepreneurs, and I find that, I can see that people really want to connect about this issue because it's a very unique issue that women face, and it's really difficult. And there's not a ton of information out there right now about how to practically get through that change in life while still being business focused.
I totally agree with that. And like I mean I love this idea. To give context for the audience, like, my wife, like she had to, she's an entrepreneur and she owns a bridal upstyle salon. We're kind of partners in that. And she had to take, time off. Is taking time off right now. Actually, we just had a newborn on the 10th of February, so she's off right now. And
Yeah.
like our first child, like taking that time off, and but it was like when she had just kind of ventured out on her own. We started JC Styles, like it was fresh, and then we had our son, and I remember her being like bullish on like, I'm gonna take this much time off, and then
Mhm.
I'm gonna be back. And I remember us having conversations like you sure that's like not too soon? And I'm like, because I was coming from the vantage point of, I'm like take all the time you need. Like this is our first child. I'm like, take
Mhm.
all the time you need. And she was I could see her kind of struggling through like, I got a business to run. I got
Mhm.
this and this and this. So, there's no easy way around that conversation, I think.
Yeah.
But I'll say this, she did create a timeline and she was back at it right on that timeline.
Mhm.
And even in my heart, I could tell, I'm like, oh yeah, no, this is good. Like there's
Yeah.
nothing that feels rushed about this. It was like
Yeah.
perfect timing.
Yeah, and congratulations on your family. That's so amazing. And I think you're totally right. And I think what's important to talk about too is like there's no right or wrong answer. And any female who's ever been pregnant will tell you that there is a ton of judgment and a ton of opinions on, how soon you should go back to work, if you should go back to work. And I think it just comes down to like what works for you and your family and what's going to make you feel good. If you want to go right back to work, then that's what you should do. And if you want to be a stay-at-home mom, then that's what you should do. But I think it's one of those things where you really just have to make it your family has to be the one to make the decision, not everyone else and their brother, because it's like everyone has an opinion on this issue.
It's true. Just even as a bystander, just watching, like observing during the time of both pregnancies, like yeah, everybody's got kind of like a, they want to weigh in,
Yeah.
and but you're 100% correct. Like at the end of the day, like we had to make a decision that worked for our family, our dynamic. What
Mhm.
was important to us. I mean, like at the end of this year, we're actually considering doing some long-term travel, and
Mhm.
both our parents think that's crazy. And like you're gonna take two of your kids and do what?
Yeah, I love that though. That's so exciting. I'm all for it. I hope that you guys do that, and I think that would be such a fun journey.
I think so as well. But to your point, like this is a really big conversation, Rebecca. So many people that maybe even just suffer in silence on this topic. It's super super powerful, and like I really do want listeners to kind of be aware. Like, is that something like and just a question, if I may, like, is that something that you're wanting to connect with people on as far as like kind of helping to facilitate those conversations or finding a group of women that are already kind of having these conversations? What
Yeah.
are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, absolutely. It's actually interesting because this whole situation has made me evolve as a person already, and it's also made me get more clear on what I want out of my business and my presence on social media, because there's been times where I've been like, should I have this conversation on social media? Am I going to
Mm,
turn off my male following? Or, you start to think about these things in your head. And it's just been super clear to me that this is something that I'm really passionate about. So I will be having the conversation. And I absolutely want to connect with, other people who are in this situation and who might just need support. I'll definitely be creating some content around it. And I mean, who knows? Like I could see going as far as, maybe having a podcast or just really taking it and running with it, because I think it's a huge opportunity to create a community that maybe doesn't fully exist right now.
I love that. There's a lady who I was introduced to through a podcast that I actually had to miss based on us having our child. But
Mm.
when I met this lady, um, like 80% of her content that she would put out there was actually around divorce. She's
Wow.
a marketer. She's a brand marketer, and like 80% of her content about divorce,
Mm-hmm.
because that was a real thing that happened in her life, that at some point in time along the way she embraced as something that has made her stronger and not something that's made her weaker. So now that's the thing that's kind of unique to some of the conversations she's having on social, and it's
Mm-hmm.
something that sticks out to me when I read her content, because it's like, oh, I like it sticks out to me now, because it's like you're coming from a place of like your actual experience. And like, I mean, let's talk about the fact that like, hey, talking about what you're actually up to and what you're actually going through might resonate with another human, because
Yeah.
don't forget we're all humans.
That's right. That's so right. And I mean, it's, as people in the marketing realm, sometimes we have to practice what we preach. And, I say it all the time to my clients, like get connected, connect with your followers, get a little personal here and there where you feel it's appropriate. And every time I do that and I implement the advice that I give to my own clients, I see like a huge jump in my engagement because people feel like, oh my gosh, okay, I'm not the only one going through that. And it's also just beautiful. Like I would so much rather have a vulnerable, open conversation about, struggles and successes and stuff than just sit back and be like, here's a social media tip for you that you probably don't care about, but like maybe you do, and maybe it's kind of useful. And like, you know what I mean? Like it's like I would rather have a really meaningful conversation. And then through that, we're learning something about marketing and everything. But it's a much more beautiful way to get there.
Oh my goodness, Rebecca, you hit something on the head that I haven't exactly been able to frame yet or articulate yet, but you just helped me be able to frame something that I've observed and thought, is there another way? Because like, I mean, like, are you on TikTok?
No, I haven't. I've downloaded it and deleted it about 5 times.
So like if like on the platform right now, like there's a lot of like marketers and like there's a lot of like social media tip like
Yeah.
content out there. And like you'll go to these pages and like, they'll hammer down to the innermost details of like, of social media and things that you can do, which is all great. I
Mhm.
don't knock that at all. But
No.
I think there's something to be said about what you just said, which is around, because I think some marketers can look at that and think like, oh my goodness, there's like that, maybe that's the only way to do it. You know what I mean? Like some new people coming into the game and they see that and they're
Mhm.
like, oh man, this is like the only way to do that and put myself out there and whatever. But it's like, to your point, it's like there's other ways to create that brand awareness,
Mhm.
and telling your story is a huge part of those things. And because I put out a piece of content not too long ago where it was like, like brands that focus on storytelling, they outlast brands that focus on lead gen.
Yeah.
and and it's storytelling. What story as a brand do you have to tell, which is
Yeah.
exactly what you're talking about. But I think that's important to say, because as we're both marketers. I think that's an important conversation to frame for marketers, because there is other ways to get your story out there. And traditionally, social media managers, marketers, digital agencies would only put out content to do with this next event, or here's our
Yeah.
service, here's our product.
Yeah.
But through podcasting and storytelling and other things, there's more that you can share. Speak
Yeah.
a little bit to that, and how you're experiencing that and observing it right now.
Yeah, I can't remember who's posted. If I could remember, I would give them credit. But I saw some content out there a long time ago, and it has stuck with me ever since. And it's just about the idea of value. So when we think about value, I think a lot of the times we think about, well, if I'm going to provide my following with value, it has to be a tip or here's how you do this, right? Like a how to. But
Mm-hmm.
value is different for everyone. So for me, when I'm on social media, relationship building and feeling inspired and feeling connected is value to me.
Mm.
So I think there's multiple ways that you can think about value. So like the post kind of broke it down, and like those how to's and those tips are still important, for sure, but so is storytelling. So is connecting, so is relationship building, and even entertainment. I mean, that's an area of value as well. And when you look at kind of statistics on why people are on social media, that kind of coincides with what value should be,
Mm.
because you can break it down, and the statistics show it. A certain percentage is on there for to learn about products and services, a certain percentage is on there to be entertained, and a certain percentage is on there to feel connected to other people and to brands. So I think we need to maybe expand our vision of what value actually means.
Totally agree with that. And it just speaks to how I think and there's a party out there of marketers that I think have evolved from that perspective, and it's really neat to see. Like the podcast and Network BOQ like started only for me like a year ago, like literally a year ago, March, like in like kind of when the pandemic like first kind of broke out. And like there are two things that I now, have that are like this is, man, like I don't know what I would necessarily be doing as far as like content distribution, and that like if I didn't have these two platforms, it's just like it just felt so right and feels so right now, and it's almost like what was I doing
Yeah.
before this?
Yeah.
So but to your point, connection and authenticity, and yeah, I just think that that's an important point to make, and specifically talking to marketers and any brand that's putting their stuff out there. It doesn't
Mhm.
have to just be about your products all the time, services all the time, tips
Mhm.
all the time. Like, I want to know about your dog. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And like, just, just who are you? Like, I know for me, and I talk about this all the time to my clients, because what I find is when we're creating content for our clients, when we put a small business owner's face on social media and actually make that connection, like, hey, I own this business, this is where I came from, this is my story, this is the hardship that I've encountered, but we're here. People love it. Like, it explodes. That type of content explodes. And when you look at the type of content that tends to go viral, I think we can see a trend in that as well. Like, there's emotion in it, there's impact in it. And like, that's what I'm passionate about. So when I'm creating content, when I'm creating something, if it doesn't give me that feeling, I know maybe I need to like just wait and think about that a little bit more and see if there's something else maybe that I should be covering. And it can be hard, right? Like some days you're tired and you're like, I'm not feeling inspired today, but it can be tough. Sometimes you have to really dig down and think like, what am I passionate about today? And what do I want to share with people that I think could bring them some kind of value?
I know exactly what you're talking about. Like that feeling you get. It's
Yeah.
it's therapeutic.
Mm-hmm. It
it's
is.
it's very therapeutic for me. Rebecca, I want to touch on something real quick, and it's to do with dreams and goals. We've talked about this already, and talking about how do we frame success. And one thing that I've been kind of starting to do intentionally, selfishly, is kind of, as we're recording this as a podcast right now, getting on tape, the dreams and visions that people that I'm interviewing have, and then having that footage and
Yeah.
holding on to it for years down the road, and to see where they are, then, and what they're up to. But if you can just take a minute or so to just to share, what are your kind of dreams and
Mhm.
visions for the future, and what does Rebecca's life world business look like 5-10 years from now?
Yeah. Well, honestly, like I owe some of this dreaming. I give credit to you, honestly, Josh, because I think before I met you, when we started having these types of conversations, I had kind of lost what I was dream. Like, I lost my dream, I think, a little bit, just because I was just in the grind and not really thinking about it. So it's been something that's been on my mind a lot more recently. And as you know, I'm very, very passionate about working with women and women's rights, women's equality, all of that. So, I definitely want to try to continue expanding on that, and, hopefully at some point have a really large agency that employs females, men as well. I'm I would happy to have men on our team as well, but, really just focus on empowering women and putting out content that really, connects women and offers that community. And just being more of, not just social media management, but really more of an all around lifestyle brand that people can connect to. So, having a podcast, all of those things, having coaching services, all of that is something that we really, really want to get into, and just be a page that people go to for support and for love and compassion and all of that.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much for sharing that, Rebecca. And can we debunk something right now that I believe to be a myth.
Okay.
And that myth is that an all female agency can't serve men. I think that's a complete myth. Like, what was it? I saw something on like Brand Ambition from like Bowmanville. They
Hmm.
had something about like, like I think they had to like showcase like more of their male people like in their organization, because there were some like male clients that were like, like, do you like, are you gonna get what I'm trying to do, like and but you know what, like, I don't know, and maybe this is just one man's opinion,
Hmm.
and maybe I'm biased. Like, I grew up with like four sisters, so like, I've been surrounded by women my whole life, but you can't tell me, like, if I walk into a store to get clothing, and a woman comes up to me and I'm trying something on, she's like, "Oh, that would look good."
Hmm.
Well, I'm probably gonna take her word over the guy that comes up and says, yeah, that could work, you
Yeah.
know,
Yeah, no, you're so
I'm
right. Yeah, like I've had many, many, many people say, well, be careful with your brand colors and be careful with your, because we have in our bio on Instagram, we have female owned and operated. And then we know we've had a lot of people say, well, just be careful because you don't want to make it so that men feel like they can't approach you. And I think that that's actually super problematic to even think in that way, because we would never say that if the roles were reversed. And it's never, females can offer an immense amount of knowledge, and we're, they're very, very smart, very good business people. So there's no reason we have male clients. I think the world just needs to open up and understand that that doesn't mean, just because we want to support female entrepreneurs in a specific way does not mean that we don't want to work with men, because men are our allies and we need them to believe in us as much as we believe in us, right?
Thank you, thank you, thank you for saying that. I think I think that's gonna free some people.
I hope so. It's
I
freed
do.
me.
I do.
Yeah, for sure. Well, we appreciate your support. Like you're such an ally for us, and like just taking the time to highlight female-owned businesses and is a step forward in itself.
Absolutely, I appreciate that, Rebecca. I'm so cautious, and want to be respectful of your time. Thank you so much for joining the show today. It's been an absolute pleasure to be able to hear and share your story. We could probably talk for hours on this topic. I know we got another meeting next week to kind of catch up, but just real quickly, where can people get a hold of you? Where can they find you?
Yeah, absolutely. Best place is on social media, and we're at Four Corners Collective on both Facebook and Instagram. So you can absolutely reach out to us on there anytime you want. Honestly, we are happy to just connect B2B, or if you're just a human and you just want to, if you just need some support, just reach out to us. We're there, and we love connecting. So
Fantastic, fantastic, Rebecca. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure today.
thank you, Josh.
Awesome. You take care.
Yeah, you too.